So apparently, one World Cup equivalent to 104 Super Bowls. And to be honest, we're gonna see why. But it's shocking due to the fact that the Super Bowl is like the biggest sporting event in America. But we're gonna see how it's like compared to like the World Cup, which is known for like the global sport, which is soccer or football, whatever you want to call it. But we're gonna check it out. Hope y'all enjoy. Let's get it.
What would you say is bigger, the Super Bowl or the World Cup final?
The Super Bowl. You know, the fan base is bigger.
It's the gladiator sport of the current day.
This is the toughest game. This is the hardest game you'll ever play.
I would say the Super Bowl.
Get hit by a bus at 30 miles an hour is different than kicking a ball into a net.
Whenever a clip like this goes viral, you just know the comments will be brutal. For many, it's the perfect ground to make fun of American sports fans. The truth is, to football fans around the world, the comparison feels laughable. How can a
NFL fans globally are 410 million. That's more than population of America. When football fans globally is 4 billion. Bro, that's literally half the population of the entire world, bro. That's insane. There's literally no comparison. It's like a night and day difference.
single American event
It's equivalent to probably comparing high school basketball to like the NBA. It's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's
even come close to the biggest sporting spectacle in the world? This debate has been around for a while, but this year it feels a little different. Because only a few months after Super Bowl 60, the World Cup will also take place in the US, so the discourse is back again, bigger than ever. But from a purely statistical point of view, there really is no debate. The World Cup blows the Super Bowl out of the water. So despite
what's sad too, like the World Cup is in the US this year, right? And the fact like with everything going on, like politically and like foreign policy and this and that, is like really crumbling. So the fact that the World Cup is in America is so ironic. It's bro, talk about bad timing. This gonna be like, I'm not gonna jinx it, but this might be one of the worst like World Cup. Just due to the fact of like where it's at, American relationship with the rest of the world, especially like our allies and whatnot. Yeah, it's doomed.
all that, why does the World Cup pale in comparison to the Super Bowl for American audiences? What do the numbers really say? And are the two sporting worlds finally learning from each other? This is Football Explained. One of the most defining moments of Michael Jackson's career didn't happen on a world tour. It happened at the Super Bowl halftime show in 1993. Decades later, it's still part of the conversation, and that captures the unique power of America's cultural exports, where
I ain't gonna lie, Michael Jackson is the biggest star in like in history. I ain't gonna lie, Michael Jackson, this man will bring a whole continent together, bro. This man, he's probably the only person that can probably stop like a world war. Literally, like this man is straight about peace and everybody coming together, bro. And like on a global scale. You know how impressive that is, especially like before like the social media days where everything is like in front of you all the time. Like back then, you need the news, magazines, you know what I'm saying? Like, try to find the interview maybe on DVD or whatnot, bro. To be that big back then, imagine now.
part of the conversation, and that captures the unique power of America's cultural exports, where music, television, and sport often share the same stage. That context matters when Americans describe the Super Bowl as the biggest sporting event in the world. But beyond the US, that framing often lands badly, because in football culture, the talking is done on the pitch. Everything else is noise, which makes the Super Bowl feel like the antithesis of football. From an ideological standpoint, football has little tolerance for what it sees as gimmicks. Any change in familiarity and suddenly, the game's gone. So when the flagship football event, the World Cup, gets dragged into the same sentence as quote-unquote an unserious American sport, the football faithful find it straight up offensive. The reaction is usually mockery, not debate. Inside the US though, the Super Bowl occupies a very different space. It happens every year. Friends, families and workplaces revolve around it. It's an annual social ritual. Beyond the game itself, the halftime show sits at the center of the event.
The Super Bowl is the culmination, obviously, of the season. It is the most watched event every year on television.
That was Bob
But I would tell you this though, like, you would think like all like the viewership from the Super Bowl will think like, oh, they're like actual NFL fans. But to be honest, Super Bowl, a lot of people who don't even like the NFL watches the Super Bowl, and it's for two reasons: the commercial and the halftime show. They don't care anything about football. They just want to be there because it's gonna be trending. Everyone gonna talk about it, so they want to see it. So like the halftime show and the commercials. That's like one of the biggest reasons why the Super Bowl had the viewership they have. If it wasn't for that and it was just strictly the game, like how like the World Cup has it, the viewership probably be like half of it. You know what I'm saying? So it's or at least like one third. So
Dorfman, a sports market analyst based in the United States.
It far exceeds anything else. The halftime show has become a huge event. Some people just watch it to see who's going to be performing at halftime.
While football fans obsess over jersey drops, the NFL world speculates for months about which artist will headline halftime, and music is only half the story. TV commercials are the other half of the equation.
The interesting thing is that people don't just watch it for the game, they watch it for the commercials. It's kind of the one event where people don't turn off the commercials. It's become part of the show.
Super Bowl ads are treated less like interruptions and more like premieres.
Favorite traditions this time of year, our Super Bowl commercial kickoff. Every year, we bring you a first look at the commercials that everybody's going to be talking about. So, first up, Pepsi. Their ad this year features a soda-loving polar
You're not the only one, but this can be heavy.
A 30-second
wait, is a polar bear going through therapy? What the?
You're not the only one, but this can be heavy.
A 30-second commercial during Super Bowl 60 costs about $8 million on average. Some companies could go on to pay $10 million or more. In comparison, football's continuous format leaves little room for in-game commercials. Again, apples and oranges here, but the advertising revenue for football is far less concentrated and far less lucrative than the Super Bowls. These ads, like the halftime shows themselves, have become cultural landmarks, not just in America, but globally. In fact,
Bro, one thing about America, bro, they will know how to make money, bro. Like that's one thing. If they can squeeze an ad in 10 seconds, they will. That's the one thing about sporting is like it's so like money. It's all about money, bro. Like it's not even like for the love of the sport anymore. It's about how the league or the TV network can generate more money. So it just like squeezing ads as much as possible. Like it's so like annoying. Like every single time out, you have like 5 minutes of ads. It's like, bro, come on, let's get back to the game already.
attention of Super Bowl is so lucrative that the halftime artists don't even get paid for their performances. And yet, despite all of this spectacle, the World Cup still eclipses the Super Bowl by a long shot. We'll get to the numbers shortly, but in early 2025, FIFA president Gianni Infantino threw fuel on the fire with a comparison that didn't go down well at all.
Damn. The fact that you have an artist perform doing like the biggest performance of their entire career in front of the biggest crowd, doing all that rehearsing for weeks on months on end, to then realize like you're not even getting paid. I thought like, the artist would be like getting, the biggest payday because, it's the Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying? So the fact that it's more of a privilege to perform and you're not getting paid, it does getting like, the recognition or the views and the eyes on you and your music, bro. It's insane. I have to tell you, bro, they would find ways to make money and not lose it.
Fire.
Especially like paying artists for their halftime performances. Yeah.
With a comparison that didn't go down well at all.
Was this part of the plan in expanding it to give some of these nations the opportunity to have that moment, to have that celebration?
Well, 100%. The World Cup next year, the FIFA World Cup, Canada, Mexico, United States. As you said, 104 matches, 104 Super Bowls actually in 1 month here.
This was Gianni Infantino's attempt to explain the scale of the World Cup to an American audience, that with 104 matches in the tournament, each one is effectively a Super Bowl level event. But is that really a fair comparison? Before the numbers, one quick clarification. When people say World Cup finals, they usually mean the entire tournament. The final, singular, is just the last match. And that distinction matters when numbers enter the picture.
The only true comparison you can make is the World Cup final versus the Super Bowl. Obviously, the World Cup is a series of matches. The Super Bowl is one match. But if you look at the final of the World Cup versus the final of the Super Bowl, the World Cup viewership is 10 times, dwarfs the Super Bowl in terms of importance and viewership.
Let's take a look.
It's crazy because that's a good point too. Because the World Cup is literally like a bunch of matches. It's like saying like the playoff series. Like you have a bunch of like for basketball. Like you have playoff series. You have like 7 games in one series. So it's like a bunch of series going into the World Cup for the final two teams. So they're trying to say like every single one of the 104 matches can match up with the Super Bowl, which is insane. That's why how they get 104. Um, like one Super Bowl, like one World Cup equals 104 Super Bowl. That's insane.
Look at the top 5 most watched games in Qatar 2022. Argentina versus France in the World Cup final drew an average live audience of 570.8 million people. These are not cumulative totals. These are people watching the same match at the same time. Now compare that to the Super Bowl. Super Bowl 59 averaged 127.7 million viewers in the United States. With a population of 342 million, that means over 37% of the country was tuned into a single game. So, it makes sense why the Super Bowl feels enormous inside America. But globally, in 2022, the world's population stood at roughly 8 billion. That means close to 7% of the entire planet watched the World Cup final live. Let that sit for a second. 7%.
Do you realize how much money that is? Especially like, imagine if the World Cup used to like run ads and whatnot, like how this Super Bowl does it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like how much money that is just because of the viewership. Oh my god.
Of the entire planet. There's no real comparison when you go head to head. But this is where context matters. The World Cup happens once every 4 years, whereas the Super Bowl happens every year.
I think what Infantino is doing is adding up the viewership of every World Cup game and comparing that to the one Super Bowl. That does not make sense. But to say that it's 104 times is ridiculous.
Super Bowl
I mean, we can see it, bro. We saw the numbers, but what do you mean it happened every 4 years? So it's like the Olympics then. I thought it was like a every year type of thing. I could have sworn the World Cup was every year, or at least every 2 years. Damn, every 4 years? Okay, I could see why it's such a big deal. Because it's literally like the Olympics. You know what I'm saying? Like
Because are measured as
don't win it. If you don't win it, the World Cup, like that year, you have to wait 4 more years. Oh hell no.
average minute audiences within the US, and they spike sharply around halftime. One event spreads attention across a month, every 4 years. The other concentrates it into a single night, every year. That also explains why not every World Cup match carries equal weight. Group games don't pull final-level audiences, and that doesn't diminish the tournament. It shows how scale distributes itself across several matches. In the NFL, even regular season games can rival or exceed many World Cup group stage audiences. A Thanksgiving game alone can reach nearly 40 million viewers inside the US. So perhaps the Champions League final is a fairer comparison, where the numbers are slightly closer, and comparing it to
Imagine having to dumb it down just as compared to the Super Bowl. You're like, no, we're not gonna talk about the World Cup. That's way out of y'all league. We're gonna talk about the Champions League. You know what I'm saying? That's more of y'all.
every World Cup match moves the story in the other direction. If anything, these numbers clarify what each event is designed to do. The World Cup maximizes reach. The Super Bowl maximizes concentration. Once that distinction is clear, the question shifts. And while the rest of the world keeps arguing about which is bigger, the sports organizations are playing a much bigger game. With the World Cup just months away, we're creating the most premium content we've ever made, a dedicated World Cup docuseries. It's just content you're watching. Sure, these are two very different sports, but the more interesting story is what they've both figured out along the way, that the best outcome is borrowing from one another. And over the past decade, especially in recent years, that's exactly what's been happening. Football, for example, has increasingly leaned into eventization. Opening ceremonies have always mattered at the World Cup, but live performances tied to match days are relatively new. The 2026 World Cup final is set to feature a Super Bowl-style halftime show, and before that, Champions League experimented with pre-match concerts featuring artists like Lenny Kravitz.
Wait, hold up. I just noticed something. Wait, hold up. The World Cup 2026 final to get halftime show with a planning input of Coldplay. So you mean to tell me our halftime show for the World Cup in America, we have a performance by Coldplay out of all people? So much people that's blowing up right now, top of the charts, this and that, and we have Coldplay as halftime performances. This is what we have to offer for the world. Coldplay, like come on.
And before that, Champions League experimented with pre-match concerts featuring artists like Lenny Kravitz, Dua Lipa, and Linkin Park. These moments have become part of football culture, even if the reception is still mixed. Some broadcasters have even opted not to broadcast the concerts live, but instead focus on the pre-match analysis.
Interesting thing to me is that they just announced that there's going to be hydration breaks during each half of every World Cup game, no matter what the weather is. And that presents an opportunity for advertisers to spend money, which has always been a difficulty for soccer to catch on in America, is because there really isn't an opportunity for advertisers to spend money and run commercials. So allowing that to happen for 3 minutes, sort of turning the World Cup, instead of halves, turning it into quarters, which makes it more like a football game. You know that all the advertisers, everybody who wants to sponsor World Cup games here is loving that they can, buy time and run ads and influence people and build their audience.
The NFL, on the other,
it's crazy too, because it's just like, I can see why America gonna like, this is why we have the World Cup in America, bro. Now they're gonna change it to where it's gonna have ad breaks now. So they implementing like water break. And it's like, you'll think like, oh yeah, the players need some water, to stay hydrated, to stay healthy. You think that they're thinking about the players themselves. No, they're thinking about the cash. Feel me? So if we add some water break, that gave us enough time to run some ads, which is revenue, which is money. And you know what I'm saying? It's like, bro, America, bro, they will find a way to make money. And that's why it's not even the love of the game anymore. It's just a money grab at this point. That's ruining the sport. You feel me? And that explains why soccer isn't as big in America as the other sports, because there's no, like you said, there's no time or there's no place to, run ads, because the game just keep going. You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
On ads and influence people and build their audience.
The NFL, on the other hand, has been looking outward. It's actively pushing the sport beyond the United States to globalize it, something football has been doing for over a century. The clearest example is the NFL International Series, which began in London in 2007 and has since expanded into Germany, Mexico, and now South America and Australia. And to host these games, the NFL partners with, guess who, football clubs and their stadiums. The NFL regular season games have been played at Wembley, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, Allianz Arena, and even at the legendary Estadio Azteca. In fact, they just recently inked a multi-year deal for regular season games to keep playing at Real Madrid's Bernabeu. On the other hand, the NFL stadiums are being prepped for the World Cup too. This underscores how deep into football territory the NFL has gone. If the trend continues and the NFL keeps pushing into new markets, there could one day be a Super Bowl outside of America. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell has said an international Super Bowl isn't unthinkable long-term, especially if the league ever adds a team outside the US. But even then, this comparison may never truly fade. And maybe that's the wrong question to even begin with, because despite everything, the World Cup might always be the biggest sporting event on Earth.
Oh yeah, hands down. There's no way in hell. I don't even think NFL, if rugby had like the same backing as the NFL, and trust me, rugby would be bigger than the NFL. Okay, it's pretty much the same thing, but more action and like less padding, so it's more dangerous, which makes it even better in my opinion. It just, yeah, NFL is not gonna overtake the World Cup. I don't care what y'all did.
Isn't up for debate.
Ads or no ads, yeah, it's not coming close.
But the Super Bowl proves something important, that when you create a
Bro, what type of body build is this?
sense of belonging and build a strong culture, you will get fandom that will last generations. And to these fans, nothing else matters. So, perhaps, at their core, the two sports might be more alike than they are different.
World Cup final this time, it's getting a half-time show, so maybe it's taking a leaf out the Super Bowl's butt.
Over America, the way they do sports is remarkable, and we can obviously take loads of pages from their book, but it's the World Cup. Everyone knows about it, and everyone wants to win it. If you live outside America, you probably watch the Super Bowl, but you're not overly bothered about it, whereas everyone wants to watch the World Cup. Even if you don't like sports, you watch the World Cup. So yeah, 1,000,000% bigger.
That's the thing, a raise of hands.
Facts. And the thing is, the one thing I would say though that the US got correct when it comes to sports is that whole entertainment. You know what I'm saying? Like even before the game start, you have You have entertainment, you have performances, you have, okay, for example, for like college sports, like before the game even start, you have like marching band, cheerleading, dancers, fireworks, flyovers, national anthem, halftime, whatever they do for halftime, cheerleader, dancers, bands, they always have something going on to entertain the crowd, which I love because it's like you get more for your money rather than just like, oh, you're paying all this money and then you go and then you have to like, sit there, wait for the players to get warmed up, and then they play the game, and then halftime comes, you go get your food. There's like no entertainment really. So I like the fact that, they take entertainment seriously and make it a big thing. You know what I'm saying? That's one thing I would say America can do best. But anyways, but yeah, I can see why one Super Bowl or one World Cup equals 104 Super Bowl, because the World Cup, bro, just takes over. It's like the world sport, bro. Like everyone knows football. But yeah, that being said, hope y'all enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe, join the fam, and I'll see y'all for the next one.